It's huge. 18 boxes of material went to Michigan State. Each box, I beat the record in linear feet of Michigan State's library with over 30 feet of material, all of it on Tanzania. So I want to tell you about that. I want to invite you to use it. I want to tell you a little bit about the programs that we're trying to get usage. How do I get this material back to Tanzania? How do I get it used? Okay, before I do that, I want to introduce, there's 5 people here who've been helping me at Dartmouth, and they are terrific, and I just want to introduce them because they've come mainly to meet you folks and find Tanzania. Dr. John Bell is the head of our digital humanities section, an absolute wizard on finding how to move large databases. The whole new field of digital humanities, as you folks may know, is rising, and next year at ASA in Washington, it is one of the fields. How do we move great amount of materials out to targeted audience? So, okay, Louise, your new officer from Europe. Thank you for coming over to help us on this. Louise is one of the chairs of the Witchcraft and Human Rights Information Network, and we're going to tell you a little bit about that. Nathan Gardner has for the last 3 years worked with me to build a website that we're going to tell you about now. And Franny Annett has been our chief researcher at Dartmouth, and so she's back here. All these people would like to meet you either today to get your names if you're interested. We had a card made. It's kind of silly, but each of you can either be a giraffe or a lion. And anyway, that's to make sure we get contact. I'm going to circulate. I'm going to tell you briefly about the Tanzania portion of this archive. The archive is made up of 5 different types of materials, and I'll circulate this. What it looks like, if you could imagine 16,000 pages of text, 5 databases that you all have access to, 1,200 photographs in the visual evidence tradition, forensic photography type of thing that anthropology is doing. And where are you going, Nathan?
I'm going to give it a shot.
Give the electronic shot.
Yeah.
Okay, what I'm passing out here is the piece of paper that has notes for you, and I'll try to get this to you individually, but what I had planned to do was introduction to the East African Archive. That's what I'm doing now. The research subjects that may be of interest to you, which I would love to have you use. It's all free. The suggested research options, and there are 3 of them we're pushing for next year: the witchcraft option, the political history option, and the visual evidence ethnographic film option, and we're trying to organize something for next year. So on this piece of paper, you will also find a note from Oswald Masibo. Anybody know Oswald from here? Yeah. He's chairman of history and also chair at the University of Dar, and also chairman of the Historical Association of Tanzania. And he has written me when I sent him the website saying that the resource, this is a bit of self-pushing, but it's for your interest. The resource of this archive is of enormous interest to my own work and to those of my colleagues at Dar es Salaam, those in the humanities, the social sciences, and I've turned the news of that archive over to them, and they're overly excited. Please get in touch soon. Let me pass that stuff around. In a nutshell, what you have is 5 types of data on that matrix. Research databases, photography, field notes, documents that are, is this in focus?
It's as focused as I can make it.
Okay, let's pretend it's in focus. Databases, there are 4 databases here, 4 large databases that are useful to you. The early work I did in the 60s was in Tabora, Rungwe, and Kisarawe. I spent 2 years in research for my own graduate work in those areas. So that data had been not only put up for your availability, but we're suggesting programs such as R or other downloadable programs for you to use the data. Nathan, come back. So you got databases, you got digital materials, what I call a digital warehouse. For example, 500 pages of correspondence with Africans on my work in political science and ethnographic film. So there's authors' publications. I manage as a journalist mainly, but as an academic to get about 90 monographs out and 5 books, and my wife's book on African art. And those are up here. They're up online and free to use for you. Photo films. I was a photo nut. 29 research trips to Tanzania and Kenya, and I brought back about 5,000 photographs. I then got taught in anthropology how to use visual evidence, and I published a little bit on that. And the new world of photo forensics is being used, particularly at Northwestern, is to use different ways of looking at your photograph. So we decided, and Nathan did much of this work, to put up photo galleries on this website, anywhere from 250 photos on traditional healing and medicine. Steve Fireman, who was my leader in this for many years. So that's Health Photo Gallery. This photo line is for your teaching. It's illustrations. And it goes from everything from 12 photos on early Tanzania and Tanu, and photographs in the bush and of the politics of chieftaincy and what was going on there, to bigger collections. So this is a new wave, I'm told, because photos can be used in so many different ways by different people, and to get them out to Africa and make sure that they're useful, if not in research and teaching. I spent a lot of time in doing annotated bibliographies. 40% of the collection deals with witchcraft, and my interest in witchcraft and human rights. I have a book that I'd like to give you. If you pick it up, I'll send it around. Publisher SUNY Press overpublished it by mistake, and so it's at the end they offered me a mere 700 copies if I pay the freight to go back. So we'd like to give that to you, and if you'll pick it up at the across the Michigan State book exhibit, I would like you to have a copy if you're interested in the witchcraft. Okay, the witchcraft material is into several parts. The main material is in this book and in a lot of field notes and the correspondence. But if you're interested in human rights and witchcraft in Eastern Africa, it's not only Tanzania, then please look at that. I have a new project, and Louise is going to, hopefully from Denmark, going to help sponsor this. But if you're interested, I'm starting a project called Witchcraft in the African Press. And this is an unfinished manuscript that I have been working on for a long time. But I've collected 525 actual clippings from the African press, mainly East African Standard and Monitor and Uganda Argus and so on. 500 clippings that have now been analyzed, put on a spreadsheet, and have been analyzed for the patterns that the African press. As you well know, newspaper reports are not terribly reliable information, but these were articles written by Africans for Africans. This is an example of this is Marambo, Steve. Steve is Marambo, who's the Napoleon of Africa. This is an example of a gallery. Anyway, I'd like to circulate this and give Louise your name if you'd like to be included. We'd like to do something next year. This has the data, and let me just circulate this stuff around and see if we strike your fancy there. Go back to the home page if you're looking at it.
Yes, just trying to show off some of the polychromatic general. Matrix.
Is that any better? Mm-hmm. Okay, there's the matrix I'm passing around. But so witchcraft is about 40% of this collection. Before that, I spent 10 years in hardcore academics. I taught at Indiana and at Michigan State. Had a wonderful job at MSU at the African Studies. And then I went into basically journalism and advising, got a lot of UN type of advisory, all based on knowing a little bit about East Africa, meaning Tanzania. Those were days when Steve Fireman and I and Joel were on an upswing. East African studies was booming. Money was easy, promotions were easy, and trips to Africa. So I enjoyed that period. This period in political science of my life, my publication in American Political Science Review and others, focused on local government and the transition of chieftaincy, colonial level chieftaincy, into the modern current political system. There's a lot of turbulence. I spent about 10 years on government, political science, government topics, then into the human rights and witchcraft topics. Midway in my career, I got into traditional healing. Steve became one of the gurus to go to on that. I was very interested in the connection between traditional healing, the Waganga, and Nchawi, witchcraft. And so these connections, of course, work. So there's materials in each of these. With Roger Yeager, I did a book on management of wildlife poaching and poaching. So the book was awful, according to the reviewers, and I correctly hidden it from most people, but I blame it on Yeager, but anyway, he was one of the great scholars at the time on East Africa. So that wildlife material is there. The health material includes the 6 years I spent with WHO, World Health. Hard to hit a moving target, so you see jumping around here, but I worked for WHO and UN AIDS on AIDS prevention in Africa, and headed a $1.25 million project where HIV/AIDS in the rural areas of Eastern Africa, and particularly among the militaries, was our topic. In that, we published 40 research journals. There's a lot of material, and this is all online, kind of the history of the HIV/AIDS attempt in Africa. Again, the final category over there is ethnographic film and photography. Way back early in the career, I spent 7 years making films. I got a grant from the National Science Foundation, I got 4 grants actually, to go to rural cultures and to use some of the early thinking in ethnographic filmmaking of how do you capture the visual evidence of societies that are in rapid transition. Margaret Mead was helpful in that she was pushing the disappearing culture idea. So Susie's giving me the hook here. This evening at 7:30 in the Brandeis Room, we would like to invite you to come and talk about research in rural Africa and to have a chance to meet some of the people I brought. I'd really like you to use the material if it's useful to you. I'd really like to get your help in putting together modular materials, case studies, teaching guides. I'm in the process of trying to reach out to the secondary schools in Tabora, Rungwe, Kikuyu Town, and to Kisarawe, Puge, and I want to. It's time to pay back. And the reason to get this material out, the reason I'm really passionate about this is that my last stop at the University of Dar es Salaam's library, the librarian, a wonderful woman from Rungwe, reports that only 40% of American dissertations have been returned to Tanzania, and less than 20% of master's thesis done there and taken away. So we've got I'm in the project. And I also want to help support the new state university in Zanzibar, and so that's what's going on. Susie, do we have time for questions, or what?
We'll be interrupted, so that's the only.
Some of us
have to go.
Yeah, and others have other.
Okay,
stuff, yeah.
come this evening if you can.
Thank you.
7:30. We'd love to see you. I need those booklets back if you don't mind.